There we go. See music. All right, welcome. Just say the truth. I'm here with Jonathan Damalore. How you doing, Jonathan?
What's up?
I'm trying to hold on one second. I guess I'm trying to run both shows here off this thing here. So, all right, there we go. And,
Just say the truth.
and there's Tony. How you doing, Tony?
Good, man. I'm excited to be here. Excited the football's back, and just excited overall.
What's up?
That's good. So
Hold on one second.
I'm running both shows here off the internet and stuff. So I'm trying to figure this out here.
There's Tony. How you doing, Tony?
Good, man. I'm excited.
Hey, y'all two start talking. I'm gonna go on mute for a second.
All right, John. So at least from what you've seen so far is the NFL preseason. I don't know how many of the games you've caught. What have you liked so far out of the teams that you've seen at least playing right now?
You know what, man? I'm not a big fan of preseason football, so I haven't really tuned into a lot of games. But I will tell you this, though. I can tell you a little bit more about tonight's games, only because, I'm been so keyed in on what the Buffalo Bills can do because they're one of my favorite teams to go deep into the postseason. I think this team clearly wins the AFC East. There's no question about it. The Bills are clearly the more talented team in that division. I mean, the Dolphins are right behind them, but I like what the Bills are capable of doing. I think they have a proven and franchise quarterback in Josh Allen. So, my eyes were really on the Lions and Bills game tonight. That being said, I think from a roster standpoint, they have the better team than the Detroit Lions. Now the Lions, they may push harder, but the Bills on paper look like the better team. They have a lot of weapons that can hurt you, and, they can hurt you in so many ways. So I like the Buffalo Bills. That's one team I've been keeping a close eye on. Another team I've been keeping a close eye on, I'm going to stay in the NFC, my friend, is the Tennessee Titans. I mean, I know they depend heavily on that running game. They have a lot of faith in Derrick Henry. I do too. I think he's a power running back. He's definitely the vocal point of that offense. He's fun to watch. So are the Titans. But I don't know how well they will do without Arthur Smith being around. It's going to be interesting to see how Ryan Tannehill plays this year. Hopefully he doesn't regress and he continues to have a season like he did a year ago, which what I thought was a breakout season for him. So, my hopes are high for those two teams that I just mentioned. I think they will have great seasons. And I know a lot of people are picking the Colts to win the AFC South. Not so fast. I know they have a great coach. I know they have Carson Wentz now. That's a question mark for me, but I still like this Tennessee Titans team. I still think they're the favorites to come out of the division. I like what they have. I think they are well coached by Mike Vrabel, and you got to remember too, he played under Coach Belichick, so he borrowed some pages from his playbook and have implied it to that Titans playbook, and it has worked out tremendously well for them.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And then we're talking about the Buffaloes here and stuff like that. Allen didn't play tonight for Buffalo. Are we going? you think he should play these 2 preseason games, or should we just see the Webb and Trubisky to see who's going to be the backup quarterback to Allen?
Well, preseason is to warm up, correct? Preseason is to get loose, to get warmed up for the upcoming season. The Rams out here in Southern California, Sean McVay and those guys, they have proven that you can still win without playing a preseason game. So, no, I wouldn't risk it. Josh Allen is their precious commodity. You don't want to risk injury. You want him out there on the field, on opening week. So, no, I would not risk it. I would sit him out. I think it's a wise decision by Sean McDermott. And I think by the time week 1 rolls around, Josh Allen would be ready to go.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'm one of the few people I actually like preseason. I think preseason actually, it not being a factor last year, I would say probably played a big impact on a lot of teams overall. You only have a 53-man roster, so there's not a lot of opportunity for guys in training camp, OTAs, anything like that to be able to show that they're standout. And even if they are, those are typically very vanilla schemes, against your own guys. You're not playing super hard. So preseason is one of those times where, this is your chance to compete. I don't think the starters should really play. Your starters for the most part are already proven. If you have like a first or second round rookie, you want to get them some snaps so they can kind of get the feel of the NFL game speed. But really in the preseason overall, I think personally is great for that development of players. You can start out with 90. I think by next Tuesday, they said they're going to cut down to about 83, I think. The week after that, 80, and then they're going to cut all the way down to their 53-man squads, and then whoever they're going to sign on their practice squads go. So to me, I like them. I like being able to see these young guys go out and prove themselves. And if you're a team like the Bears, for example, you draft Justin Fields 11th overall. This is your opportunity to see, okay, what are we going to kind of get, at least just from a preseason of how he's going to correlate into the NFL from college. So I'm a big proprietor of it. I definitely watched a little bit of that Bills versus the Lions. I think the Bills have a lot of really good depth so far, just from the little bit that I watched. I'm excited that preseason is back, and just excited to see the difference that teams make now, especially now that I think the talent's kind of more spread out between the AFC and the NFC.
Now let's move on to the Tennessee Titans and the Atlanta Falcons. Without Julio Jones for the Falcons, and they picked up Pitts in the first round, how do you see how is Atlanta going to be able to compete in that NFC South, or are they just going to try to keep rebuilding and then compete in the next 2 years?
I'm not sure if the Atlanta Falcons really have established an identity for themselves. Quite honestly, I can't tell you who they are. I don't know if they even know themselves who they are. I think by the time the season roll around, we will have more information about the Falcons. I understand they have big stars over there too. The Falcons, have plenty to look forward to coming into next season. But I'm just not too sure about the Falcons. I know it was a disaster for them a year ago. It was a train wreck for them. They still have Matt Ryan as quarterback. We'll have to see how that plays out this upcoming season. He's taking a lot of criticism for his inability to orchestrate drives and, lead his team down the field. Yes, he's not the same quarterback that he was years ago. But people forget that this guy once was one of the top quarterbacks in the league, right? He put up some ridiculous numbers not too long ago. So, they definitely have a quarterback who has proved himself before. Unfortunately, he has regressed and fallen off a bit. But I don't know where this Falcons team can end up. They're off to a new start now. They have fresh blood, and now they have a chance to make something of themselves, and we'll see soon what this team is all about.
That is true. Now about the Tennessee Titans, picking up Julio Jones, So now, does that give the Titans some advantage in that AFC South?
Yes.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, if you look at Tennessee, you're going up against probably what a lot of people would consider a top 10, maybe even a top 5 defense in Indianapolis. Very very underrated. For a majority of the season, they were one of the top scoring defenses, and Julio Jones just gives them a very reliable target. He's not one of those guys that feels that he needs to be targeted every single game. He doesn't need the big numbers. He very quietly just goes out and he makes big plays and he produces. It gives Ryan Tannehill a big target as far as the end zone goes. When you pair him up with A.J. Brown, you still have Derrick Henry as well. I mean, that makes that Tennessee Titans team a very dangerous team, especially offensively. Them as well as the Falcons as well. My big question is just defense. Defense has been really the Titans' biggest weakness over the last couple seasons. They did add Bud Dupree from the Steelers in the free agency, so I'm kind of excited to see how he fits into that Titans scheme. But I think offensively, I think they're definitely going to give the Colts a run for their money, and they're going to make that defense for Indianapolis still struggle.
Yes. And Tony, don't forget the Titans added depth at receiver this offseason with the signings of Josh Reynolds and Marcus Johnson. So they have a little bit more depth at receiver. And Josh Reynolds, he's a nice addition for them. So I expect a lot from this team. I think this team will be very fun to watch, particularly offensively.
That is true. So we got the next preseason game we're going to talk about is the Dallas Cowboys and the Arizona Cardinals, but they haven't got started yet. So what are you looking for from the Cowboys and the Cardinals in this preseason game?
I mean, really for me, because I'm a huge Cowboys fan. For me, if I'm looking at it, what is Dallas still going to do defensively as far as starters go? Dallas has already solidified for them that Trayvon Diggs is going to be their cornerback number 1, but who's going to be the cornerback number 2 for what was an abysmal defense last year? I mean, I don't think a group of old ladies could almost stop better than Dallas's defense could last year. So really, what is Dan Quinn going to incorporate as far as that defensive scheme? Is he going to be able to get the best out of Leighton Vander Esch, especially coming off of an injury season? Is Jalen Smith going to be able to live up to that contract that he was paid just a couple seasons ago? And by the looks of it, just from the Hall of Fame game, from the one series that he was in, is Micah Parsons really going to be kind of that cornerstone defensive player like Bobby Wagner was for him up in Seattle? I think offensively, they're still going to do extremely well. Dak Prescott coming off of an injury. They still have one of the top 3 wide receiver cores in the league. The offensive line is going to be a little bit of a question mark. They're older. They are starting to have some injuries. But for me, just seeing how Dallas does defensively is going to be big for me.
Yeah, to me, I like to see what Parsons is going to do. That's the big key I'm watching on that rookie. I have big high hopes for him. He should be a pretty good linebacker for the Cowboys. I did one interesting tidbit from Parsons when he played in the Hall of Fame game. I caught a snippet of his thing. Saying him and the coach was arguing because he was ready to go back out there. He was just getting in the groove, and then all of a sudden he went back and talked to Vander Esch, and he started naming out how many hours they're going to be away from the game, and he said it's all for a long time. So, I mean, to me, he is going to be part of one of your starters, so you don't want to play him too much in the preseason. The injury factors want to get involved there. So how you think Parsons is going to actually do for the Cowboys, and is he going to be a big asset?
Yeah, you know what? Parsons is the favorite to win the NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year. I don't know why he would have such a hard time translating that over to the NFL, what he did in college. I think this guy is special. He's a great linebacker, and I think he brings a lot to that defense. He's going to for sure bolster that defense. He's one of the guys that I have my eyes set on as well. I'm interested to see how he gets acclimated to things, how he adapts to the pro game, and how he plays moving forward. But I definitely think that's one guy I'm watching. And, of course, Dak Prescott. I mean, it's so easy, right? He's the one with the highest paid contract on the team. Let's just see if he can live up to the Dallas Cowboys standards and lead that team. I'm not too sure. We all know he can be injury prone. He's dealing with a shoulder injury right now. which is why he is not expected to play at all during preseason. But this Cowboys team, to me, I got them winning the NFC East. It just looks like it can go their way because they have enough offensive pieces. But I think if they do get to the playoffs, they're one and done because I'm not too sure about this defense. I still have my ifs, ands, or buts about the defense. I'm not too sure. The defense can be a little suspect, but that's why they addressed one of their glaring needs by drafting Parsons.
Yes. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to move away from these preseason games. We're going to go into our topic here. This one, we're going to do the top 10 quarterback duos. I'll name the rankings of the top 10. Y'all give me your opinions if these rankings are correct for these duos. Okay. So the first one will be ranked number 10 is the New York Giants, James Bradbury and Adoree Jackson. What are y'all thoughts on them?
I mean, I would think so. I would. Sorry, John. Go ahead.
Repeat that.
The New York Giants is ranked number 10 quarterback duos in the NFL for the 21-21 season. James Bradbury and Adoree Jackson. What are y'all's thoughts about that pick at the top 10 right now for the duos? They come in at number 10.
I mean, I would say that's pretty true. If you look at James Bradbury last year, he had probably one of his best seasons. After he got released from the Panthers, coming over to the Giants, that was probably one of their better free agents additions on the defensive side. They get Adoree Jackson, who we know is a speedster. Little bit of question marks as far as coverage when I was watching him with Tennessee last year. The cover, I don't know if the coverage is there, but Joe Judge has proven, especially with that defense, there's not a lot of big names on that defensive side. I think they've done really well the last couple of years as far as drafting. They got Williams from the Jets. They ended up signing him to an extension. And I would say as a defensive unit and with Joe Judge coming over with that Bill Belichick mindset and that defense as a whole, I think they're going to do really well. So I would probably say that they're pretty solid as far as the number 10 spot.
Yeah, I would say that's a legitimate ranking for them. Adoree Jackson, I followed him quite well living here in Southern California. He played for USC. He fought on with the Trojans. He was a track star, a multi-athlete, just talented. Like Tony said, though, you have questions about his ability to cover wideouts. He struggles sometimes, covering wide receivers and his opponents. He let them break away from him. But he definitely has great speed. He definitely could get his hand on the ball. I like that. I think Gettleman did a good job addressing that secondary. And now, the Giants have something to look forward to in that secondary.
I agree with both of y'all. They have James Bradbury, a comparison with the seventh among corners with Jalen Ramsey. This focus group of Pro Football Focus graded him at 79.8, which tied him seventh with among Jalen Ramsey. But Bradbury still allowed 59.6% completion percentage, the second lowest mark among the corners in 2020. And then with Adoree Jackson is the Giants' more effective blanket pass catcher before the snap between and additions made up front. New York should increase the pressure rate in 2021. So with adding Adoree Jackson, they increase hopefully get some pass rush in there because these two corners could hold up their receivers a little bit and get them off the route. So they came out of number 10. Do you agree with that assessment with this top 10 so far, with this just one pick here for number 10?
I would say so. I did look at that list a little bit early, and there's a couple that I can already kind of tell for at least future when we kind of continue on deeper in this sorry, losing my train of thought. That I'm probably not going to agree with. I'll probably make an argument on, but I mean, as far as the defensive unit as a whole for the Giants and the cornerback duo, I would definitely agree with them that they're solid right there at number 10.
Okay, at number 9, we come in with the Green Bay Packers. Jair Alexander and Kevin King. What are y'all thoughts on them coming in at number 9?
I would agree. Well, I would agree with that. I would maybe almost move them up, maybe 1-2 spots at the max to either 8 or 7. Jair Alexander has already proven that he is very good shutdown corner for Green Bay. And really, if you look at last year's NFC Championship, that was the one thing that hurt them last year, was just a simple mistake by Kevin King. I think he's going to have learned from that. He's going to have continued to grow in this scheme and in the league. And I mean, Green Bay defensively, we haven't really known them for being a great defensive team as a whole. Usually, though, secondary wise, they're good. I mean, they got the best out of Charles Woodson, basically having him transition from corner to safety and vice versa, and rejuvenate that career. And I mean, that's really something that Green Bay needed. I know they drafted a cornerback as well in the draft this year with their first pick. I can't remember his name, but I think
Eric
overall,
Stokes.
yeah. So I think with those, as far as a trio of cornerbacks, I think that's going to be great, and I think he's going to learn from 2 really good cornerbacks as far as Jair, and then Kevin King is going to come into his own as well.
Yeah, I think we all can agree that the Green Bay Packers have had a rich history of cornerbacks, great cornerbacks that has come and gone from that franchise, and now they have 2 promising corners that's on the rise. You know, you're seeing Alexander, what he's capable of doing. Tony mentioned it. He couldn't say it any better. He's becoming a shutdown corner. You know, he's he puts a lot into it, and that guy is going to be tough for a very long time. I think King is only going to prosper. I think he's only going to get better with time, and he can learn from Alexander. Alexander being as great as he is. So give it time, and both of these guys, man, they look good. They look like they're going to be great corners in Green Bay for many, many years to come, and they're going to be anchoring that secondary for a very, very long time.
Yeah, and I agree with both of you on that one. And we're going to move into the Indianapolis Colts, ranked number 8. When you think about duos, you're thinking about the 2 outside corners. Well, for Indianapolis, you have Kenny Moore II, who's a slot guy, covering the slot guy, and Xavier Rhodes. We all know about Xavier Rhodes. He's an excellent cornerback. So give your thoughts on Kenny Moore taking away the slot receiver. You don't really think of a duo with a outside and a slot. You think about 2 outside corners. So think about what Kenny Moore can do here for the Indianapolis Colts. Do you agree with this duo here?
Yeah, I would even say move them up, because I mean, if you want to look at as far as big plays, and if you want to look at somebody, especially, I mean, really Tom Brady's entire career, what was one of his favorite targets to hit? It's almost always the slot receiver. You've got your, typically, like you said, your outside cornerbacks, or your corner 1 and corner 2. They're covering the 2 top receivers, and then your third guy, maybe even your nickel, is going to be covering your slot. If you take that slot option away, as long as your other cornerback can at least hold out to cover even the second wide receiver, and especially with the Colts having a good linebacking core like they do with Darius Leonard, that kind of takes away that tight end option as well as gives them another option in the pass rush. I mean, that to me is a big statement, and I think that's why they have been so effective on the defensive side, is because they have that great slot corner that's able to take that slot option away for those short over-the-middle passes for, even if it's only 7 or 8 yards, a lot of times that's all it takes is that small yardage overall to just kind of wear that defense down and, just move the sticks.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. Indianapolis, they have a great secondary with Xavier Rhodes. I mean, I think Xavier Rhodes is very disrespected. Quite honestly, I think he's an underrated cornerback. I mean, he has reestablished his reputation as a legitimate shutdown cornerback, we can say. So, I like both of those cornerbacks. I think that's a great ranking for them as well. And, Rhodes will look to be, doing what he always does best, and that's, getting to the football, making it tough for the receiver to come down with the football. I really like Xavier Rhodes. By the way, he's actually one of my favorite players in the NFL. So this Colts secondary, yes, it's one of the top secondaries in the NFL, no question about it. Their defense is going to be better. I couldn't see why they wouldn't be in the top rankings.
Yeah, and one tidbit of Kenny Moore here. interesting tidbit. He's good against the run, so that gives him a little bit of
Yes.
effectiveness. So that's
Yeah.
why they graded him up there. So he gives them good run support at that corner, that slot corner position too. So it runs up his values up a little bit very well. So at number 7 is very interesting here. The Cleveland Browns come with Denzel Ward and Greedy Williams. What do y'all thought about it at the rank number 7 right here for the Cleveland Browns?
I mean, I don't know if I would necessarily agree with that. If it was me, I would bump Cleveland down, and I only say that because we didn't get a chance to really see Greedy Williams play last year. If I remember right, he was actually hurt a majority of that season. Now, Denzel Ward has proven that he definitely is that number 4 overall pick when they drafted him back in 2018. You know, he's proven that he's going to be a very good corner. Seems like he continues to produce as far as the defensive side of the ball. I haven't really seen enough from Greedy Williams to know whether or not I would put them up there as far as that cornerback duo. On paper, collectively, I would give the Browns secondary definitely an A. I mean, they spent a bunch of money on free agency. They got Troy Hill from the Rams, and then what was it, Josh Johnson as well. As far as the safety position. So, I mean, they bolstered their defense. You know, they're going out. They want to be able to compete with the Buffaloes, with the Kansas Cities. And, I mean, on paper, as far as all the talent that they have at the corner and the defensive spot, I think they have a chance. But like I said, I haven't seen enough from Greedy to know if I would put them that high as far as the rankings, as far as the cornerback rankings go.
Yeah, I'm with Tony on this. I haven't seen enough from him. Denzel Ward, yes, he's a 4-year veteran. He's been around for a while now. This is a guy that can really shut it down. He can be dominant. He can make plays on the ball. I really like Denzel Ward. I think, honestly, guys, I think the Browns are ranked this high because for the simple fact of who they are. We know that they're good on both sides of the ball because they did a lot to improve their roster tremendously, especially on the defensive side. So I can see why they're ranked so high, but I mean, it's a little bit too early to say that about their secondary, but we'll see this season what will happen.
Yeah, and an interesting here when I was reading over this list here. They added Troy Hill in as a free agency and drafted Greg Newsome the second in the first round. Both Hill and Newsome is coming off a campaign of Northwestern in which he allowed just 12 catches on 34 targets per Pro Football Focus. Could easily hit the starting lineup before the season gets underway. So that could make a little bit of a difference too. So we don't know how these guys are going to play. We know Greedy's coming back from injury, like you said, Tony. Denzel, he has proven himself. So, I think this should have came in at number 10 just based on the common factors here, of my opinion, because I think they were ranked too high at the number 7 position here by the NFL. Pittsburgh Steelers come in at number 6 with Joe Hayden and Cameron Sutton. What is your thoughts on that?
I mean, even, and we could probably dive deeper into it as far as the Steelers go as a whole. I would say last year the defense was probably one of the only bright spots for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, offensively, they were not able to get it done. I heard a lot that they were probably one of the worst 11-0 teams to really start. But honestly, defensively, really ever since Troy Polamalu left, I don't really see Pittsburgh is a strong secondary team. I mean, I loved the addition of Minkah Fitzpatrick. I think, honestly, Minkah Fitzpatrick is their best defensive back player from the safety position. Joe Hayden has gotten older. And who's the second one again, Ray?
Cameron Sutton.
Yeah, Cameron Sutton. I mean, don't get me wrong. They're both great corners. But, I mean, I think Pittsburgh relies more on its pass rush, much like Washington. I think they rely more on their pass rush being able to get to the quarterback, those corners being able to hold off those receivers and tight ends just long enough so that they can get to the quarterback and cause that pressure. I mean, to me, Minkah Fitzpatrick is their biggest defensive player, but I don't see Joe and Cameron Sutton being their as high as they should be. I would probably argue them at about 8 or 9. I would probably even argue them at maybe 11, just outside of that top 10 spot.
Yeah, Minkah Fitzpatrick is their best defensive player. I mean, this guy's an incredible safety. But, for many years now, the defense has been a weakness for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Not their offense, their defense has been a big weakness. And, now the Pittsburgh Steelers return to a guy like Cam Sutton to fill the void in that secondary. They're depending on Joe Hayden, who's older now, like Tony said as well. I just don't buy this at all. I just think they have the Steelers ranked too high. I don't even think they should be in the top rankings, to be perfectly honest, because I'm not really too sure about their defense. Their defense has been suspect for a very long time. We all know what they can do on offense. We all know how great they've been offensively, but their defense has been an issue for some time now.
Yeah, and if you look at it, Sutton comes in at 94 percentile in coverage grade on per snap basis over the past 2 years. The computer vision shows his change of direction speed when his hip rotates more than 90 degrees while running was the fifth fastest over that span. This helps him predict effective use of the season. So, yeah, and then he lists Fitzpatrick as one of the best defender in the safety position. So, I mean, I agree with all you. I think this duo right here is, I don't even know how they got it in there as a top 6. I can see him at number 11 or down, not in the top 10 because Hayden is getting old. We don't know really, I don't know how much we can believe on this Pro Football Focus analytics they got going on here and stuff like that. I think it's just misleading in the eye of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, they played pretty good so far in the preseason, as a whole, but still, it's just too early to tell what the Steelers defense is really going to be about this season. Besides Fitzpatrick, who can take away the deep passes. I mean, so you see the Steelers play that where they take the deep passes away and make them dink and dunk you all the way down the field too. So we're going to go to your neck of the woods, Jonathan. We're going to go at number 5. They got the Los Angeles Rams, Jalen Ramsey and Darius Williams. So do you think the number 5 ranking for Ramsey and Williams connection here?
I think that's about right because we all know what Jalen Ramsey can do, right? And not only can he get into your head, but he can also break up passes. I mean, he covers really well. He backs up his talk. He has the ability to, change the game. He can make game-changing plays and all that. And then you have Williams. I mean, a lot is expected of him. Now, you lost a lot of that secondary and free agency. You lost Troy Hill. You lost I'm going blank on his name, but he went to the Titans, I believe. Oh, John Johnson. You lost him as well. So there's a lot expected of those two guys in the secondary, and Jalen Ramsey, of course, is anchoring that Rams secondary, which is expected to do some big things this year, considering on how everyone has the Rams high on the radar and, have these high expectations placed upon them. So I like this ranking. I think it makes a lot of sense given the fact that Jalen Ramsey has been one of the top cornerbacks in this league for quite some time now. So I definitely like it alongside with Williams.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, if you look at last year, just at least in the playoff game, I mean, really one of the few receivers that was able to actually score on him, and I think more it was a just breakdown in communication on that defensive side was Davante Adams. I mean, you could watch the play when Davante goes in motion. Ramsey's following him the whole entire way, but he doesn't have any help in the backfield. So yeah, I think I agree. Ramsey is probably one of the best, and I like Ramsey because he is willing to acknowledge when he is going up against great talent. He even admitted probably one of his best receivers that he goes up against is DeAndre Hopkins, and I mean he's probably one of the few with that Arizona offense that is going to be able to score. And yeah, just if you look at the Rams collectively, they were ranked the number 1 defense last year, and they were ranked number 1 for a reason. Like John said, I think they are going to take a little bit of a step back because of what they lost in free agency. But I would still keep them at about the top 5. I mean, even what they've lost, I still think collectively as a team, they're still going to be able to rebound, and I still think they deserve that type of respect for the defense that they still have in place.
Yeah, I agree with you too. But to me, I think teams is going to be. We're going to see what Darius Williams is all about right here because teams are going to start going away from Jalen Ramsey. It's going to pick on the other corners. We know how this NFL works. You have some quarterbacks who will try Jalen Ramsey during the season, but we have quarterbacks that won't try him, and we have some offensive coordinators that try to shy away from Ramsey. When Ramsey was here with the Jacksonville Jaguars, I really liked his play. Tom Coughlin came back and kind of disarrayed everybody, and that's why he left here because all this Kool-Aid stuff. I really liked him as a corner. I mean, he's a lockdown corner. He's one of the best corners in the NFL, and teams going to probably stay away from him more this season than they did last season. So they're probably going to pick on the other one. But again, this is a solid top 5. Could be a solid top 4. By the season ends and stuff like that. So I think I agree with this ranking as the Rams are staying right at number 5. Now, this next one comes up. I really have a hard time because we're talking about duos. Well, the Denver Broncos, they have 2 duos, according to this thing. They have Bryce Callahan, Ronald Darby, Kyler Fuller, and Patrick Surtain II. So, does the Denver Broncos have 2 duos, or should they just be off the list right now?
I mean, I don't think that they should necessarily be off the list. The only 2, well, if anything, I would say the only 2 that I would cross out, and one of them may be coming with a little bit of controversy, but I'll go into why. The first one I would say to cross off that is Ronald Darby. I mean, Ronald Darby, I think this is his 3rd team in like 3 years now. He's with the Texans, he's with the Eagles. He's kind of bounced around a little bit as far as where he's gone in the NFL. And then I would say take Patrick Surtain off of there. And I only say that just because he is a rookie. He's expected to do very well. He was the SEC Player of the Year last year with Alabama. Obviously, Alabama is always known for having great defensive players, but we've also seen too that doesn't always correlate over into the NFL a lot of times. So I think for them, we still have to kind of wait and see how Patrick Surtain is going to do first before we even consider that. With the other 2 corners that they have with Fuller. I'm sorry, one more time. Who's the second one along with Fuller?
Bryce Callahan.
Bryce Callahan. I don't necessarily know if I would put them at 4. I think I would probably put them at about 7 or 8, a little lower. I mean, defensively as a whole, I think the Broncos are very good. You still got Von Miller. This is going to be his last year. You got Bradley Chubb, and you still have one of the best safeties in the back with Justin Simmons. So, I mean, realistically, I think that they still are in a top 10 defensive form. But as far as those 2 individually, Fuller, I've seen a lot because I remember him being with the Bears. He was still very solid for them when he was there, and he reunites with his old coordinator in Vic Fangio. But yeah, I don't necessarily agree with them. Kind of grouping together all 4 of the Denver Broncos cornerbacks. I mean, you could probably make an argument for that for a lot of NFL teams. If you group all 4 of them, this is it's a great secondary, and it's a great cornerback group, and they probably have one of the best depth as far as the cornerback position. But I don't really agree at putting them at 4 just because they decide to put 4 cornerbacks in that position.
Yeah, on paper, the Denver Broncos have a solid secondary. On paper, they have a fearsome secondary. The Broncos secondary ranks number 1 by Pro Football Focus, to be honest. So, I mean, they're putting a lot on this secondary. Let's see if they're about the hype, though. I know they have Bryce Callahan. I know the Denver Broncos, have the luxury of deciding if they want to go with Kyle Fuller, Ronald Darby, or the top 10 pick, Patrick Surtain, the kid that came out of Alabama. I mean, they got a lot, they have a lot of decision making here to see who they want to roll with, come for the season opener. Vic Fangio, he has a great defense to work with. He can mix it up. He has a lot of guys out there in that secondary, but I don't know if you should put all 4 in there. I mean, that's not fair. That's not fair. We're talking about cornerbacks here. We're not talking about the complete secondary, the entire secondary. So if that was the case, then we would put all four in there. But I don't know how that happened. That's a bit baffling to me.
Yeah, and one of the things for Bryce Callahan, the flexibility, they can move him inside, brings one little bit of flexibility for him, but they look at talking about Pro Football Focus, they grade the NFL corners at, Callahan had the third best grade among NFL corners at 84.1, while Surtain has the best coverage grade among all Power 5 conference corners since 2018. But we're talking about college football right there. We're not talking about pros.
I know this is off topic a bit, but I think Vic Fangio this season is coaching for his job. I think he's, on borderline of losing his locker room if this team doesn't get it together. It could be bad for Vic Fangio this season.
Yeah, but only we're talking about the defensive side, but the only thing is how good the Broncos offense is going to be to match what this defense can do,
Yeah, and I think a lot of people would argue they're honestly just a quarterback away. I mean, they have Jerry Jeudy, they have Cortland Sutton, they have Noah Fant, and they have a solid defense. Their offensive line is above average. And the running game, I would say, is a little bit of a question, but they drafted the guy out of North Carolina. And I mean, I think they're a quarterback away from being a legitimate contender, even just if it's just in the AFC West, which is probably one of the hardest divisions. I think they're just a quarterback away.
All right, moving right along here. Go ahead.
They have playmakers for sure. They really are just a quarterback away.
Well, the Miami Dolphins ranks number 3 with Howard and Byron Jones. So what's your take on these two?
Yeah, like I said, I saw this list earlier, and when I saw that, I chuckled because I think they should be number 1 personally. And I say this for a couple of reasons. Xavier Howard has already shown, especially last year, 18 interceptions. He's probably one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best cornerback in the league. There's a reason why the Dolphins paid him big money a couple years ago. But there is a lot of talks about how he's frustrated with Miami because he's the second highest paid corner on his team because they went out in free agency and got Byron Jones from the Cowboys. Now, as a Cowboys fan, I remember watching Byron Jones a lot. The only knock on Byron Jones is he's not great at intercepting the ball. He does not get a lot of turnovers. But really, as far as a coverage lockdown corner, I would say he's probably one of the best. And I would say as far as overall youth, talent, and I think because of Xavier Howard not being happy with his current contract and wanting more money, I think that's just going to motivate him to play even harder next year. And I think he's going to force the Dolphins into either you need to pay me more money or I'm just going to use this as motivation for another team to come and get me and pay me the money that I feel that I'm deserved. So to me, I would say the Dolphins cornerback duo should be number 1. I don't think they should be Lowe's 3, but that's just me.
Yeah, one can argue that. The Dolphins have arguably the best secondary, if not one of the best secondaries in the NFL. I mean, this defense is legit. When you look at it on paper, this defense is pretty good. They're picking up pretty fast. They're athletic. They have nice size. They have a bunch of smart guys. I like what Miami is doing. The coach, the special teams, the offense, the defense. This Dolphins team could surprise a lot of people, particularly with the secondary, the defensive front. They built a monstrous defensive front as well. They have the complete package on defense, I think. So I'm with Tony. I think you should have ranked them higher because I think this year they're gonna surprise a lot of people, and they're gonna make a huge impact on their team. I believe this secondary is improved from last year. All they need is Tua to play well.
True. And they talk about Byron Jones last year's 2 interception in 2020, double his career total. His effectiveness in man coverage increased as in 2020. But his visions and loud decreased later in the year when he you got to take in context of his injury and stuff. So if he can stay healthy, that could be a formal duo. It could be a ranked number one duo. Time will tell here with the Dolphins. And Baltimore duos come in at number 2 with Marlon Humphreys and Marcus Peters. So what's your thought on them?
Oh yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. And a lot, in all honesty, between the Dolphins and the Ravens, I could probably argue, those would easily be the 1 and 2 spot. And you could really argue for both. Marcus Peters, when he was with the Kansas City Chiefs, he was dominant. When he was with the Rams, he was dominant. And I mean, he's been dominant for the Ravens for the last couple of seasons. And same with Marlon Humphrey. I mean, also been extremely dominant. Even, we were talking about this on the show last night, for everything that Lamar doesn't have as far as wide receivers goes, he's had as a defense. I really think that the defense is what helped them carry to 14-2 and has helped Lamar be able to take this team into the playoffs. And I mean, that's probably 2 of your arguably your top 10 cornerbacks in the entire league, just on the same team working together in what I think is a great tandem.
Yeah. Go ahead, John.
Marlon Humphrey, man, to me, could read the field very well. I mean, he knows where the ball is at all times. He can make game-changing plays. I really like Marlon Humphrey. I think he's a great corner, as well as Marcus Peters. Now, Marcus Peters took some criticism when he was with the Rams because there was times that he would get beat, in coverages, and he wasn't able to get back, and there was a lot said about him. But Marcus Peters has, since being traded to Baltimore, has looked more like that cornerback that we saw in Kansas City, that all-pro cornerback. So these 2 guys together are definitely deserving of a top 5 ranking. They have made a huge difference in that secondary, and, they will cause a lot of problems and will present a lot of problems for opposing receivers.
Yeah, and I agree with everybody, with both y'all's sentiment here. Marcus Peters has 31 career interception, which is most among the NFL quarters since he was drafted in 2015. The next person closest is 9 fewer with 22 is Xavier Howard for the Miami Dolphins. Peters' risk-reward style of playing Humphrey's ball tracking excellent complete in each other while also driving return greater than the sum of the parts. That's what they listed here as that. And Baltimore is known for their defense, so you figure they're going to be ranked up there. I think they would probably be ranked 1 myself. But the team that really doesn't associate with defense came in at number 1 with a duo. That's the New England Patriots and Stephon Gilmore and J.C. Jackson.
Yeah, that when I saw that, if you would have asked me this before last year, I would have probably agreed with you because, I mean, Stephon Gilmore is still a top cornerback for sure. I mean, there's a reason why he's one of the few free agents that Bill Belichick went out and said, I will actually pay you the money that you want. But, I mean, he's older. And I think you kind of saw last year, with a lot of the opt-outs that the Patriots had, I think overall that hurt them as a defense. And I think that kind of exposed Gilmore a little bit because he took a step back last year. He was not the defensive player of the year that he was the year before. And I mean, J.C. Jackson, he's young. He's had 17 interceptions over now year 4 that he's coming into the league. And I mean, he's got a great mentor in Stephon Gilmore. But like I said, I think with Marcus Peters, with Marlon Humphrey, Xavier Howard, Byron Jones, I would argue that those 2 duos should take the number 1 and number 2 spot. I don't necessarily think that Stephon Gilmore and J.C. Jackson should be in that number 1 spot.
Yes, Gilmore particularly has lost a step in his game. He's not nearly as explosive as he used to be. So no. The other cornerback, I'm going blank. Help me out.
J.C. Jackson.
J.C. Jackson. Thank you, guys. Yes, he is emerging into his, into a superstar, in his own right. I think he's a great corner, but I can see why they're ranked 1. They're the New England Patriots, and their coach is Bill Belichick, but that doesn't make them number 1 in, overall. I think that's crazy. I think you put the Dolphins and you put the Dolphins and you put the Baltimore Ravens before them. You don't rank them that high. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. Stephon Gilmore is probably one of the best, but he has lost a step. He's getting older in there, and they're not really using his 2020 stats. They use his 2019 defensive year of 37 forced incompletions since 2018, tied second most in the NFL at that position. J.C. Jackson ranked number 17 in projection wins share, and Pro Football Focus showed that he allows a 62.7 passer rating last season. And then they used Jonathan Jones. I don't know why they keep giving us three in the duo category. I guess these people don't really know how to count. But to me, I think this duo should have been like maybe fall back to number 6 or number 7 instead of being at number 1. And the Dolphins could have been at number 1 or number 2, and then Baltimore Ravens could take that number 1 spot instead of being in number 2 spot. For our last topic here in the football realm, we're gonna make this kind of quick here. What team or player are you looking for in the preseason to meet your expectations? So, what's one guy or one team is catching your eye in the preseason?
I mean, for me, all honesty, I want to see what the Jacksonville Jaguars do. Mainly from the college perspective, when you think of great college coaches, probably one of the first two, especially in the modern day era, that come to mind is Nick Saban and Urban Meyer. I really want to see how Urban Meyer does translating from the college era, taking 3 great programs, taking Florida, taking Ohio State, taking Utah, all the championships and winning, rebuilding those programs. So I really want to see how he does in the NFL. I think, Trevor Lawrence is supposed to be, one of those once in a generational talents compared to Andrew Luck. I hope that he lives up to that standard. They went out and they got Marvin Jones, and I think Marvin Jones was a great addition from Detroit. I think he's one of those kind of under the radar wide receivers. He's not going to give you, he's not going to be number 1 in the league as far as receiving, but it gives Trevor Lawrence a very good veteran target. And I think the Jags are just going to be fun to watch. And I hope that they succeed along with Urban Meyer to kind of cement that he is one of the best coaches to ever just play the game of football. Or coach the game, sorry.
I'm going to go over to the NFC, and I'm going to pick the Falcons. I want to see how well Arthur Smith does in his first preseason game as a head coach. I mean, he wasn't coordinator. Now he is the head coach. It's a lot different than, being a coordinator, as we all know. And then I want to see how Kyle Pitts does. I mean, this is a guy who was considered arguably the most talented player in last year's draft. I mean, this guy has a high ceiling. He was the highest selected tight end in NFL history at number 4 overall. So that's my intriguing pick. I really want to see how well this team plays. I know they had a bad year last year, and then they're without Julio Jones now. So it'll be interesting to see what the Falcons do in preseason.
Yeah, I had the Dallas Cowboys. Michael Parsons is one of the political I've been watching throughout college, and kept my eye on him. I just want to see what his game translates from college into the pros and see what he does at that linebacker position. Because I always said I think the Jaguars should have took him at their one of their 2 picks they had in the first round. But to me, that's one of them, and then Trevor Lawrence is the other one. But the big one here in Jacksonville is the tight end position, because Jacksonville Jaguars haven't had a tight end in a while, and we're trying to see if Tebow is going to fill that thing. Right now, the coaches are saying that he's leading the battle between all the tight ends. He has made some good plays in practice, but that's practice. That's not in a game. I want to see him in a preseason game here. It's coming up on Saturday. I'll be at that game live at 7 p.m. against the Cleveland Browns. I'd like to see him get in the game and see what he can do with full contact, because, to me, with Tebow in the situation he's in, we know he's probably going to be a good route runner, good pass runner, and stuff like that. But I want to see him get on that line and block, because if you don't use him as a blocker and you keep putting him in, teams going to realize that, hey, the Jaguars are going to pass. So they need to use him as that run blocker too, to give teams not cheating up on them and stuff like that. So that's my key right there for that. That's who I wanted to see, those 2 players, and see what the tight end position, because the Jaguars haven't really had a tight end position in a long time. and that's going to help out your quarterback because you got that medium and that line throw. So you don't want to, the tight ends usually the relief pressure of any blitz, any pass rushing. So that's one key eye I got it on my thing. So we're going to move into here real quick. We probably only catch one of the NBA titles, but this one is kind of, I want to catch on. I want to see everybody, see what y'all's opinion about is. What is y'all's thought on J.R. Smith enrolls at North Carolina A&T, and he's asked the NCAA for eligibility to play on the golf team. You think this is just a laugh, or you think he's really serious about it?
I mean, I think he's serious. I mean, to me, it's almost it's one of those. It's a little weird. Typically the NCAA, as far as the waiver goes, they'll do it for like maybe 4 or 5 years out. But I mean, the dude had a full NBA career, and now he wants to join a college golf team, which to me I think is where, like, if you want to golf, if you want to go out and golf, on your off time, like a lot of pro athletes do, by all means, man. If you got to practice, if you want to go for the Masters, I don't really know what his end goal is as far as what he wants to do with golf, as far as wanting to go back to a college and play for college golf. I mean, I really don't see the point. To me, it's just kind of weird. But I mean, it is J.R. Smith. So I mean, watching him in Cleveland, everybody remembers the iconic LeBron James. That what are you doing face. That's kind of how I feel like now. Right now, I feel like LeBron. Like, what are you doing, J.R.? Why are you going to college to play golf again?
Yeah, it's a bit staggering and bizarre to me that he chooses to go to college to play golf. I mean, he could do what Charles Barkley does on his own time and just find a golf course, and play golf. I mean, on your spare time, you have all the time in the world, just go play golf. You have all the money in the world to choose any resort, any golfing resort, and you can go there and have a good time and play golf. You don't need to sign up or enroll into a college just to play golf. It makes no sense to me. I don't get it. I don't get it. But again, it is J.R. Smith, and maybe he wants attention, or hey, maybe he's going back to school to get a degree. Who knows?
Well, he did talk to a reporter at the Wyndham Championship Pro-Am in North Carolina on Wednesday. He stated that he is trying to get his degree. He wants to get a degree in business, but he also went to a HBCU to play golf to try to say, hey, we can play golf with just one of the best anybody in the country and stuff like that. So I think it's more of a statement for him. He didn't, he did commit to University of North Carolina to play basketball. Then he decided to go to the NBA straight out of high school. Did not go to University of North Carolina. So, I mean, I understand the North Carolina AT&T thing. I understand his ability, but we really don't know how his golf game really is. We don't know if he's any good at golf or what his deal was, because he really hasn't, the spotlight has not been really on him like it has been on Charles Barkley, has been on Michael Jordan, and some of these other famous players and coaches that actually play golf. So we really don't know how good of his game is. So to me, I really don't understand this point. I think it could be more publicity. I mean, he made $90.3 million for his work and 2 championship rings in the NBA. I mean, I don't think he's hurting for any money unless he's blown it all like most athletes.
And a timeout blunder. At least he doesn't have to worry about that playing golf.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's maybe if it's like hey, I want to see how it is to play golf for college. I mean, like you said, he made $90 million. I mean, he can afford a personal golf trainer. He can afford to go out and play with these big league guys that can teach him how to play. He doesn't have to go back to college for it. Like you said, if it's a statement thing, I support what he's doing, but I think he's just doing it in a very bizarre way more than anything.
Now we're looking at we're moving on from that. That was a little bit of a little comedy break there. For him saying that he wants to play golf. That just caught my eye, and I thought we'd just talk about it a little bit here. How about Andre Drummond and his downplayed past drama with his new 76ers teammate, Joel Embiid? So he downplayed it. Drummond said there was never a real beef. So what do you think about them two playing together and the 76ers and the history between the two guys?
I mean, to me, we kind of talked about this a little bit last night. If anything, I think it just puts more of a fire under Ben Simmons. or sorry, not Ben Simmons. Is sorry, Embiid. Yeah, I think it puts a little bit of a fire under Embiid. They did kind of have a friendly beef at one point in 2017. Drummond actually fouled out while going up against him. So I think as a whole, it's probably going to put a little bit of a fire under Embiid just to play harder, just because it's like, nah, man, I want to keep you on the bench as long as I can. You're not taking my spot. Unless I absolutely have to come out of the game, there's no way. But I mean, I think it's different too. If you look at the NBA and the NFL, it is a business. There's going to be times, in life that you're going to work with people that you may not necessarily like or agree with, and you got to make it work. So I think for them, I think they'll be able to put things behind them just to be able to help get this team hopefully over the playoff hump and actually make a deep run in the NBA playoffs, or at minimum make a deep playoff run in the East. So I think they'll be able to work it out, though.
Man, those two guys were playing for opposing teams. They were playing against each other. It was competition at its finest. I mean, these guys have paired up to play together now. It's a different feeling. I mean, you could patch up your differences just to play together. You can reconcile your disagreements and join together on the same team. We see it all the time. Like Tony said, it is a business. And maybe they squash, whatever beef they had, put it aside them, and now they're willing to work together as teammates on the same team. And maybe, who knows? I highly doubt it, but you never know. Maybe one day they could be NBA champions on the same team together.
Yeah, and I read this story off of CBS, and a little bit down in the blurb here, the 76ers, Doc Rivers could plan on running a jumbo lineup out there with Drummond and Embiid both in the starting lineup. So what you thought about that aspect of Doc Rivers and him and adding a jumbo lineup, and it could go back to flag about that Ralph Simpson and Olajuwon back in the heyday, the Twin Towers. So
yeah, I mean, I think it's a good thing. One of the things that a lot of people have criticized Doc Rivers for is, he is able to turn around these organizations and make them playoff teams. But the big thing is he doesn't make any adjustments. When it comes down to it, if you look at what he did with the Clippers year before last, what he did with the 76ers, when things weren't working, he didn't make an adjustment. So, I mean, if he's willing to do that, I think it's a great thing. And even if there is kind of a little bit of a beef between Drummond and Embiid, if they're able to somehow funnel that onto the court and just make people pay for it, hey, if Embiid and Drummond have this little competition, like, hey, I'm going to drop 30, I'm going to drop 40, whatever it's going to be, I mean, that's just going to help the 76ers overall as a whole.
that is true. So we're getting ready to be out of time here. We're going a little bit 2 minutes over here in this stuff. It's great to be here with y'all guys today. Sitting in for Freddie and while he's at work and stuff like that. So, this is Just Say the Truth. I'm Ray Cruz, Tony, and Jonathan. Y'all have a good night.
Appreciate being on. Y'all have a good night.
Have a good night, everyone.
All right, man.